All right, so official good morning to everyone. How many people do we have here? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. George, you ready? Saul, you ready? Okay. So, yesterday we were, of course, watching Mean Girls. We'll finish it today. There's lots of things to talk about, but let's quickly review what we've talked about so far. Yeah, good? Okay. So yesterday we were talking about the different social groups in the school, right? And we said that Katie walks into the cafeteria and there are all these kind of different social groups with kind of different identities and different levels of kind of status and power and prestige all around the cafeteria. And so we said, what determines what group a person might belong to? Interests, things they might be interested in. So the jocks are all interested in football, at least I would think. What's that? Actions.
I mean, sexuality and gender.
Right. So some social group identities are part of it as well, right? There's no sexuality part, although Damien's sexuality might be the reason why he's not part of a social group there.
Also, because the white mean girl told Katie that the other girl, she stopped talking to the other girl because she was lesbian.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So that's true. I forgot about that. So there seems to be some social exclusion on the basis of sexuality, right? So Damien doesn't appear to be in a social group. He's just friends with Janice. And Janice has been accused of being a lesbian, right? Whether she is or isn't is not entirely clear at the moment. But those two seem to have kind of created their own group because they were rejected from others, right? But yeah, your gender has something to do with it because the Mean Girls, while the Plastics are all girls, the varsity jocks are all boys, the preppy guys are all boys. So gender is a part of it. What else? Race is a part of it. What's that? Yeah, hobbies. Race is definitely a part of it because we have the Asian nerds and the cool Asians and the angry black hotties. All of those actually have their race specified in the title of the group, right? And the preppy guys probably should be called the white preppy guys because mostly preppy guys are mostly white. So race has something to do with it as well. Sexuality might have to do with your inclusion. Gender, hobbies, what else? What's that? Say it one more time. Smartness. Oh, okay. Yeah, your intelligence, right? So if you want to be in the Asian nerds, you got to be a smart person, right? If you want to be in the mathletes, you got to be good at math, right? So your intelligence might be part of it. What else?
Attractiveness.
Your attractiveness, yeah. So particularly with the Plastics, they are a group of really pretty girls who are really stylish, right? And so girls who do not kind of fit into that definition aren't going to be invited in, right? Anything else?
Lifestyle.
Lifestyle and what?
Style and coolness.
Style and coolness, right? So there is a social hierarchy based on how cool you are, right? And it's very interesting in that we instinctively know what that social hierarchy is, right? They don't have to tell us, right? So if I ask you about, the Asian nerds, are they at the top of the social hierarchy or closer to the bottom? Close to the bottom. What about the varsity jock guys? Close to the top, right? The desperate wannabes? Oh no, I think they're way down. So we kind of instinctively know how that hierarchy is. And of course, all of the other kids at the high school know the hierarchy as well, right? They understand how their little society works. But of course, Katie does not, right? She's been dropped in and she's trying to figure out how this world works, whereas all the other kids already know. And we do too. And it's interesting that we've received these social messages and that we understand how these things work, right? Hey, everybody on your laptop, are you with me? I see your head is down and you're looking at your phone or something. So maybe laptop's halfway closed for now so you can pay attention to me, because it's hard to pay attention when there's a screen of something else in front of you. Right. So what did I want? Oh yeah, and so the plastics have a set of rules, right? And we said, what kind of rules do they have?
Track pants on Friday.
Yeah, yeah, track pants or jogging pants or jeans. Only on Friday, what?
No ponytails, 2 days in a row.
Yeah, ponytails. Is it once a week or is it no? It's only once a week. Okay, so not 2 days in a row. No, only ponytail once a week. No tank top 2 days in a row. See, you would have been sitting at a table all by yourself, George, because you would have violated the tank top rule. What else? Right, if you buy something, you ask the other girls first.
Wearing pink on Wednesdays.
Pink on Wednesday.
If you like someone, come and tell us.
Right, if you like a boy, then you have to kind of check with the group, because you might be wrong. You might not actually like them. You have to see. You have to see whether you like them or not, right?
Can't date your friend's ex.
What's that?
You can't date your friend's ex.
Oh yeah, no dating the friend's ex. That's true too. And so, how do they enforce these rules?
Punishment.
Yeah, how do they punish them?
Like a bit alone.
Kick you out of the group.
Yeah, you can't.
No talking to them. No sitting with them.
Yeah, you can't sit with them. You can't sit with them at lunch, right? Can't sit with them at lunch. And we said that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's a very public social shaming, right? You're in the top group in the school, you're at the top of the social ladder, and then, you're kicked out and you're made to sit at a table by yourself.
What happened if everyone got kicked off except for Regina?
What would happen?
Yeah.
Um,
Will she still get a top?
No way.
well,
She has no one there.
let's wait and find out what happens. I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just see how this unfolds. Yeah, because the group is starting to crack, right? So Gretchen has been, Katie has sort of manipulated Gretchen to a point where Gretchen's feeling very insecure and she's kind of feeling a lot of anxiety, and something's going to happen, right? And of course, Katie is sabotaging Regina at the same time. She's trying to break up Regina and Aaron Samuels. She's feeding Regina all of those bars, those candy bars that she says are meant to help her lose weight, but that's not really what they're for. So something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. I want to ask you about number 4, because this is something that came up yesterday, and it was either right before or right after the little Jingle Bell Rock dance number. And Katie is narrating, and she says, Gretchen was being, nicer and nicer to Regina, and Regina was being more and more awful to Gretchen. And the more awful Regina was, the more Gretchen was trying to win her approval. And she says, Gretchen realized that it's better to be in a social group than to not be in one, even if being in the social group is awful. And so why do you think she might have said that?
Because she said everyone looks at you at school and everyone knows things that, like, you didn't tell them. Like, they know things about you that, like, you didn't tell anyone. And, like, a cool person. Like,
Okay. So
you know what I mean?
yeah, so there's a lot of secrets between the group, right? The group know things about other members of the group, and so if you were kicked out, maybe those loyalties wouldn't be there, and maybe everyone would find out about that thing you did, right? Or that, something you wouldn't want other people to find out about. That's true. What else?
probably like despise her. So.
Right. Gretchen is kind of in a dangerous situation because she has, in the plastic, she has a lot of social power, right? People look up to her. People either respect her or are afraid of her or know to sort of stay out of her way. But if she was removed from that group, then she might not be treated the same way. And maybe she's been awful to a bunch of people, right? And so when she's in the plastics, she might be protected from all of those consequences. But if she gets kicked out, maybe not, right? Maybe people might actually return the favor and treat her the way that she treated them, right? Why else? Why else? It has to do, there's something that has to do with all of those rules about clothing. It's a bit of a stretch. You might have to think a step or two, but it's connected to all of those rules about clothing and appearance. A little bit. That might not be a good hint, but what do you think? Sabrina? Avira just threw you under the bus. She's like, she's got something.
You can't sit with it.
Right.
Like, everyone's gonna talk about her.
Right? Everyone might be gossiping about her, right? And so it might be very unpleasant to be kicked out of a group, right? It might be, she might experience some shame and people might socially shame her. Yeah, people want to feel included, right? They want to feel a part of something. And so it is stressful for humans to not feel that way, right? And so again, it's a very effective social punishment when somebody breaks social rules and then, we kind of like don't want to talk to them so much, or we kind of keep our distance. It doesn't seem like much, but for human beings, it's usually a very effective means of social control. Humans want to be a part of the group, right? They want to be accepted as part of the group. And so if somebody misbehaves, we tend to, push them away a little bit in order to get them to follow the rules. There are some cultures, and I think it's like hunter-gatherer cultures, and I should have looked this up beforehand, but I just thought of it, where one of the punishments they have, and it's a more severe punishment, but if you do something really bad in a small, simple society, the punishment is that people just ignore you. They just pretend like you're not there. The entire community. You're just invisible. They don't hear you, they don't see you, they don't talk about you. So you continue to live there and you continue to, eat food and, you're part of the community, but people just pretend that you're invisible. And it's brutal. Like, it's the worst. And people fully commit to it. They're just like, yep, the person is not here, I don't hear anything, and they just totally ignore them. Everybody does.
Is that a real life thing?
That's a real thing. That's a real punishment.
Where?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I remember hearing about it in the course of my anthropology education, and I don't remember who does it, but it's a very simple means of social punishment, and it is very effective.
That happened in my school, but it was more of like they didn't kick that person out of the group. It's more of like they make that person stay because they know how much that person wants to stay.
Yeah.
But they're just like not invited in anything, and like they're just there.
Awful, right?
Yeah.
Ugh, it's the worst, right? But again, it shouldn't make much of a difference, right? But of course, again, we're very social creatures, we're very emotional creatures, and it doesn't take much to kind of hurt us in that way. I mean, look at when you go to prison. If you do something bad, you get put in solitary confinement. Not so much anymore because people are raising issues that it's, a bit of a human rights violation, but why is that a punishment? Because you're isolated. You have no interactions with anyone else. It's a very effective punishment. Salah. Oh shoot, sorry. If it comes back, let me know. George.
How does everyone know what to do?
In the culture,
Yeah,
that I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Well, it would be like an official thing. Like, so if, let's say, let's say you stole something from me, or you know, slept with my wife or something. I don't know. I don't know what the infraction would be. But yeah, the sort of elders, the village or community elders would get together and they would talk about it. They're like, okay, everyone, this is what's happened. This is this person's punishment. We will totally ignore them for 1 month or however long. And so for 1 month, nobody talks to this person, nobody looks at them, nobody says their name, nobody acknowledges their presence, nothing. Yeah, and as I say, it's brutal. Like, it's the worst. The other thing I wanted to point out, and maybe this was a bit of a walk from where we were, but why are there so many rules around what the plastics can and cannot wear?
Because they don't want to be judged by others.
They don't want to be judged by others.
They have to maintain a sort of image.
They have to maintain a sort of image, right? So how, someone like Gretchen, for instance, how big a part of her identity, who she thinks she is, how much of her identity is being part of that group, being part of the plastics, do you think? Probably pretty big, right? Especially at the age she's at. She's trying to figure out who she is, and so her being a member of the plastics is a pretty important part of who she is, right? It's her friends, it's her identity at school, her style, the whole thing. And so if she gets kicked out of that group, then who is she, right? There's a big part of who she thought she was that is now gone, right? She was part of that group. She was at the top of the food chain in the high school, and now, who is she? She's just Gretchen Wieners, girl in the high school. That's all she is, right? And so that's something that's very uncomfortable as well, right? She doesn't want to lose that piece of her identity, right? She doesn't want to lose that piece of who she is. So again, for all these reasons, even though Regina is being awful to her at the moment and Gretchen is very anxious and unhappy, she's still not going to leave the group because it's so much better to be in one than out of one, right? Okay. Can we move on? All right. So online people, I think you know how to find this movie by now because we've been watching it for a few days. So I'm going to, let's see. We'll watch another, let me see,
30 minutes?
25. We're going to watch 25 minutes, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back here, okay? So I'm going to put, where's the clock? I'm going to put 35 minutes on the clock, and then we'll come back and discuss, okay? So online people, go watch another 25 minutes, and then we'll see you after the break in 35 minutes. All right, so we're back. Two questions for you. I just want to start with number 6 first. So we see this scene where Regina wears sweatpants, but not on Fridays. She wears them on Monday, right? And why does she wear them?
She doesn't fit.
Yeah, she doesn't fit in her regular clothes, right? So Katie has been feeding her misinformation and these, nutrition bars that help her to gain weight. She's been gaining weight, and now some of her clothes don't fit. But what happens?
She found out.
She's been kicked out.
She has to sit at the other table anyway, right? The girls enforce the rules. Who do you think made up that rule to begin with?
Regina.
Definitely Regina, right? But what is she? Dobre din. What does she say when? So they said you can't sit with us. You have to sit at another table. What does Regina say?
She said it's not real anymore.
Yeah, those rules aren't real anyway, right? But what happens to her?
She gets kicked.
Kicked out anyway, right? So what does that show us about socialization that we kind of already know?
You break the rules,
You break the rules,
you get kicked out.
you get kicked out, and
Even if you're the one who enforced it.
even if you're the one who created the rules and enforced them in the past, and what else does it tell us about socialization? Has to do with what Regina says.
That
That this,
That what?
that they use they're just made like after that.
Yeah, the rules are just made up. They're arbitrary. They're socially constructed, right? And so that's the same thing with all social rules, right? If I bump into Adel at the SkyTrain station, like I mentioned, and I stand too close to him, I'm kind of breaking a social rule, right? But of course, the rules are arbitrary, right? We've been taught how close to stand to each other. I could stand close to him, or I could stand far away. We can still have the same conversation. There's no difference. But the social rule is that, you stand a proper distance apart. And if I break the rule, Adel is going to step back or feel uncomfortable, or maybe tell me, hey, can you step back a little bit? You're up in my face here, right? He's going to say something to me. And so, or do something in response. And so that's what this shows, right? It shows that even if the rules are made up, even if the rules are arbitrary, there are still consequences for breaking them. And so this sweatpants rule is a ridiculous rule, right? It's very made up. But even though Regina's the one who makes it up, there are still consequences for her breaking the rule. And the other girls enforce it and kick her out, right? My other question for you is why, and I think, was it you, Sala, that pointed out yesterday that she's starting to dress differently?
yeah.
That-
I
that-
don't know.
Katie was starting to, or maybe George? I feel like it came out from over here. Or King? Was it George? Okay. Yeah, so we started to notice that Katie's appearance starts to change, right? Her hairstyle, her makeup, her clothing, her fashion sense is evolving, and it's becoming more like the other girls in the plastics, right? So why does she start to act and dress like Regina?
Fake it till she make it.
Sala, what did you say?
She was influenced by him.
She's being influenced by them, yeah?
She fake it till she make it.
She's faking it until she's making it, okay?
She also feels that sort of like once Regina's out of the way, everyone starts like she's kind of the new Regina, and then she's like, "This is a good thing. Like I'm good. Like I'll take this advantage."
Yeah, she likes being on top.
Interesting, yeah. So it's almost like she gets a taste for that power, right? So the other girls, she's kind of the low person on the totem pole. Everybody with me here?
Yep.
Mike, you with me? She's kind of the low person on the totem pole, and then she starts to see that the other girls start to look to her for direction, right? She's slowly becoming the leader, and then she kind of leans into that, right? But what else is happening? Why else does she start to act like Regina? Yeah, she's rubbed off on her. How could we make that sound more sociology-y? What's happening?
What is it?
So Aliana said that Regina was kind of rubbing off on Katie, but how could we make that sound more fancy?
She was more influenced.
Influenced, or what's another word?
Threatened.
What? Threatened? Perhaps Regina can definitely be threatening. I'm thinking of an S word. Yeah, yeah. So Regina is an agent of socialization, right? She is creating social norms, she's enforcing them within her group, and people are being socialized just by being in that little environment, right? So that little group is socializing its members in certain ways, right? And so Regina is a very powerful agent of socialization. She's got a lot of social power. She's got a lot of social prestige. She's very confident and aggressive, and she's manipulative, right? And we see her manipulate all kinds of people around her, and we just saw her manipulate the entire school, right? She put her own photo in the burn book and wrote something nasty about herself, gave it to the principal, and put on an Oscar-worthy performance of, oh, this is so terrible. Oh, how could anyone do this? Even though she's the one who did it. And then she circulated copies of the book to the entire school, right? She manipulates those around her, and she's manipulating the principal and now all of the girls in the entire school. So she's a very powerful agent of socialization. And so Katie is becoming socialized by Regina, really whether she likes it or not, right? Because she doesn't like Regina. She's trying to destroy Regina, which is a very Regina thing to do. She's trying to destroy Regina, but at the same time, she's being socialized by her, which is crazy, right? But as we'll see when we go forward, people can be socialized, people can absorb social messages, even if those social messages don't benefit them. Okay, so remember that. I'll come back to it again. People can absorb social messages even if those messages are not to their benefit. Okay, and clearly this is not to Katie's benefit. Katie was just trying to destroy Regina, but in the process, she became like her, right? And is now arguably just as bad as Regina is. So interesting. And there's even more that we haven't dealt with in this movie, but we'll deal with it in due course. So let's finish watching this so that we can wrap the talking. Well, no, we won't. We'll talk about this movie for quite some time. We'll come back to it, but we'll finish watching the movie now, and then we can move on to other stuff tomorrow. Okay? So I'm going to shut that off. And okay, let's wrap it up. Thanks for the lights there, King. Oops. Oops. Okay, so there's not too much left to talk about there. Like the last part is a little, there are things in the last part that we'll talk about, but maybe not today, because tomorrow we're going to wrap up the socialization stuff and we're going to move on to oppression. But we'll reference this movie again because there's still lots of stuff.
Is it, what is it?
Depression? Oppression?
Oppression, not depression.
Oh.
No, that's something else. Yeah, tomorrow we'll talk about oppression and we'll wrap this socialization thing up. Until then, I think I will let you go. Should I?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to let you go. Come back tomorrow and then we'll start talking about oppression, not depression. Okay. See you tomorrow.